Welcome back to the Siege of Castle Gallagher, played using Warhammer Fantasy Battles 6th edition. We ended our last episode on a cliffhanger. The forces of the Broman Empire had just used the discount Walmart version of Grand to bash open the gates of Castle Gallagher. They've completely blasted it out of the way, and they are ready to charge into the castle, but that happens on the melee phase, which means the play kicks over to the undead's turn. Before we get to the undead turn, there's a couple of things we should probably talk about. This is the stage at which I really think the system starts to kind of show some cracks, some weakness. Look over here. You see this? We got a unit of spearmen have cleared the ramparts, and over here is a unit of great swordsmen, but only 2 spearmen, plus the good general there. I can't remember his name. Oh, Samout, General Samout. And then over here, it's just a couple of great swordsmen. So the rest of the mob is down here, and each segment of wall can only have 1 unit, but I had 2 to 1. And so I think we're just going to have to, let it ride. And, I'm not exactly sure how this works out, because there's guys back in the courtyard. Let's take a look at that real quick. But just before we do that, let's just point out, on the side of the Bromans, we have a very small unit of spearmen. They took a lot of damage getting to the top. They have a banner, and their champion died, so I'm sorry, guys. And then over here, we have a unit. Their captain is up there with 1 wound. 1 more wound, he's out of the game. This, of course, is the Vampire Lord, John Blank, or Blank John, we call him. I don't want to give away the game for who I named John Blank after. And then down here we've got, this is the Vampire Lord, and then down here we've got High Priest Rickley, and we have, so here's the other thing, and I'm sorry, let me finish. There are 8 surviving spearmen about to run through the gate, but you can just barely see, the light's a little off, you can just barely make out, let's shed some light out, there are some zombies down there. Oh, you can barely see them, which is just the way they like it. The Bromans also have a fairly substantial unit of archers way out here on the wings. And if you look up there, you can see we've got 1, 2, and then over here on the left side of the castle, we've got a whole nother unit of skeleton spear. And if we look back down here in the courtyard, there is another unit. See there, we got 8 spear skeletons and 15 zombies. That's 14 or 15, I can't remember. And then a couple of archers up here on the wall. So that's the forces that the undead are working with. And generally speaking, the way the siege works, you put your ladders and you get up here. And once you get a footing on the wall, and it's really hard because you're only hitting on 6s. Even your big bad general with a weapon skill of 6, he's still only hitting on natural 6s. So it's hard to get up there. The good news for the Bromans is that High Priest Rickley has been able to cast so brave, like 6 beers into the night, because our Bromans have not been affected by the fear-causing effects of the undead. That's been the big difference here. This game would have gone entirely differently if the Bromans were constantly checking those leadership checks, even with the +1 for having a leader right by. So that's enough jibber-jabber. Since the undead get to go, we have a couple of options here. Of course, we're going to send these zombies right into the gate. They're going to countercharge. And then the question is, what do we do with these guys? It takes a full move to get to the top. I think we call that a charge. Do we break this down into a skirmish battle now? That kind of feels like it might be appropriate too. But we've got 8, and I guess those 8 are going to charge. So, again, these 5 guys on the ramparts here, this is where you get that ebb and flow. They may be thrown off the rampart. So we're declaring our charges there. And then how do we move these guys? This is the other issue that I really struggle with. On their movement turn, the undead clear this wall. It takes a full turn for this unit of 10 skeletons to get down into the courtyard. This unit has slid over. Remember, our gatehouse is actually 2 stories high. We're kind of playing fast and loose with that. They're swarming into the gatehouse to try and flush these guys off the walls. But we're going to have to get through this round of melee first and see who wins this combat. That's going to be complicated. We'll get back to that. These guys, there's really not a lot they can do. They're waiting to see whether it's going to make more sense for them to go down into the courtyard and flush out this way, or if they want to stream across the walls. And then you can see right down here in the gatehouse, I've got the zombies are just all jammed up in there. Take a look at them. That's going to be a madhouse. Now, I just jammed them in because, frankly, it's hard to reach down in there. They are 4 rows across, so they're only going to get 4 attacks this round. They have an initiative of 2, but because they charged, they'll get the first attack this round. Because they've gone into melee, that means these archers up here with this cauldron don't have the option of dumping it onto the heads of these 4 spearmen. Might have been a better idea to give up the charge and then just wipe these 4 out. The order of the day is try to get as many casualties as you can, I think. But instead, what we're going to do, and it is, let me double check. It goes movement, then magic. So we got to figure out what happens with our undead lord. The problem Blank John has here is that he's only a level 2 wizard. He only gets 3 dice for casting spells. His counterpart gets 5 dice to dispel. So this time around, we're going to do this in the exact order it's given in the rules system. He's going to open the festivities by using a single, let's do 2d6. He's going to try to blast this pain in his side with magic missile. It only needs a 5 up. He's going to use 2 dice, and he rolls a really high number, an 11. High Priest Rickley says, I don't want to die. I'm going to use all 4 of my dice to try to dispel. And he gets a much higher number, so that spell doesn't work. But what that did is it freed up Blank John to cast, it's basically summon extra undead. On a 5 or better, he's successful. And on a 6, he succeeds. And now only on a 6 can Rickley dispel that. He gets a 3. So the spell goes off, and that means that the Vampire Lord finally gets to take advantage of one of his special abilities. Invocation of Nehek is what it's called, which is, it adds D6 models to the unit. So he can nominate any unit, and he's going to go ahead and nominate the unit on, well, there's no room for him on the ramparts, is there? He's going to nominate the unit, well, he's got to have line of sight, I think, though, and he can't see the guys way back around the corner there. So that being the case, let's go ahead and add 6 figures to this unit up on the walls. Well, D6, I should say. So let's roll and find out how many. Just 2. So 2 more pile in, and I'm going to take from the dead pile, or the undead pile. And essentially what that does is it means our great swords guys are going to be doubled up 2 to 1. And the way I've done this is I just said, hey, everybody gets 1 opponent, and then I'm going to put, and I think I forgot to mention that one of the vampire's thralls, Dane, is here. He's going to go one-on-one against Captain Manstill. Because we have the extra guys, we're going to put a couple of extra spearmen on General Samout. We're going to put an extra one on the captain, and now we've got an extra one on each of these great swordsmen. But before we get to that, we do have some archery practice. These 2 archers are going to fire down at High Priest Rickley, and they only have a ballistic skill of 2. So with a this was a 6, take my word for it, and that 6 is going to be a 4 to wound, so it wounds, and then we will save on a 5 or better. I think that does it. He's a level 4 Wizard of the Heavens, and he does not, but he does have 3 wounds. So he takes an arrow to the knee. We're going to start with the complicated melee, and it's really complicated. I've got 2 attacks going up against weapon skills of 3. And interestingly enough, the great swords, they automatically attack last, even when they charge. Doesn't really apply. So fundamentally, I've got 2 attacks here against these guys, and I have to roll these separately because everybody has different abilities. The only thing I know is that the undead go first. So this one-on-one, there's no hits. I've got 4 attacks against the great swordsman over here, hitting on 4s. I get 3 hits. Wounding on 4s, I get no wounds. And now we've got the leader fight. I've got 3 guys that are attacking General Samout with a weapon skill of 6. They're only going to be hitting on what's a weapon skill of 2 versus a weapon skill of 6. They're only going to be hitting on 5. So that's 3 attacks on the leader. And there's a 6 for you. And then we wound on, well, a 2 ain't going to do it. And we have 1 more attack by a spear guy on Captain Manstill. With his weapon skill of 5, we're still only hitting on 5s. So 3, so they've drawn a complete bagel, but now it's time for the big boy. And here they are, Captain Manstill with 1 wound, going up against, it's actually Thrall Korinsky. He has a Sword of Might, which gives him an AP of 1. He gets the first attack, and he gets a total of 3 attacks. Weapon skill of 5 versus weapon skill of 5. He's hitting on 4s. He's going to score 3 big hits. with a strength of 6. Oh, he's got a total AP of... Wow, is that 4? He's got an AP of 4? Wow, that's bonkers, man. But he does only have a strength of... Wow, strength of 6, is that right? He's brutal, man. Brutal. Strength of 6 versus toughness of... Captain, what do you got? How tough are you? Toughness of 4? We are wounding on anything but a 1. So 2 more wounds is going to put the captain down. He will not be able to counterattack. And that does count as 2 wounding hits. So I'm going to put that down. How many wounds does he have? Does he just have the 1? I think the extra wounds still count towards the results of this fight. So this is our dead pile down here. There's the 1 for the figure, 1 for the red. Now the Bromans get to counterattack, and we're going to do the same thing. Let's just go left to right this time. I've got 2 spear guys that are fighting, and they are hitting on 6s. I got a single hit. They are wounding on 4s, so that's nothing. And then we have our general, who is hitting on, I think, well, he's definitely hitting on 4s. So he's going to get, does he have 3 attacks? General Sam out. Now his horse isn't there with him. He actually has 5 attacks. We got to roll 2 more dice. And that 3 is going to be a hit. He is attacking weapon skills of 2. A 5 versus 2 means he's hitting on 3s. So he gets a total of 4 hits with a strength of 4. Going up against a toughness of 3. He's going to be wounding on 3s. And just like that, we get 2. Well, we got to make those saves. But those saves are going to be at AP, I think he's at least AP 1. With that strength of 4, save modifier -1. They only have a save of 6, so that means these 2 fellas are going to crumple. And so much for the reinforcements. Then we have a pair of great swordsmen who are going up against spearmen. A 5 and a 6 are both going to be hits. They have AP, oh, they're at +2 on their strength because they have those big swords. Those are both going to be wounding hits. And and of course there isn't a save on that because they have because they're hitting with the strength of 4, it's AP -1, so that's going to be 2 more. And I'm just going to take 1 off of each of these guys. So our final results are 4, 5 because the general is there. We don't count the banners and the musicians and the stuff at the bottom. So a total of 5 to the Bromans to 2 to the undead means the Bromans have won by 3. Normally you would do 3 of the undead would crumble to the ground, but because we're doing a campaign game where the moon is full and the powers of darkness are ascendant, we reduce that by 1, meaning 2 more of these skeletons are going to crumble. And I think I missed a skeleton. 1, 2, yeah, I took the 2. I did miss 1 skeleton up there, and he's going to fight one of these guys, and with a 5 he hits, with a 4 he wounds, and then with a 2 we will fail to save. So one of these great swords goes down. That means that our final score is 3 to 5. Only 1 more of these spear skeletons is going to fall to the wayside. And notice how we weren't hitting only on 6s. Because they took to the ramparts, all of the Bromans were able to use just their normal attack rolls. That's the benefit of having at least 1 guy up there. And unfortunately for the undead, that means on the Broman turn, all these guys on the ground are going to be able to flood the zone. Now for the fight at the gate. We only have 4 zombies that are capable of fighting here, and they are going to be hitting on 4s. Weapon skill of 2 versus weapon skill of 3. They're going to score a total of 3 hits. But because they are zombies, they have a strength of 3 against a toughness of 3. They will be wounding on 4s. They get a total of 3 wounds, and then we are going to be saving on 5s. We get a single save, so 2 of these spearmen are going to drop out. Let's put our body counts over there, shall we? Now we get a total of 6 counterattacks. We've got 6 spearmen here. Are any of those champions? Yes, we have 1 champion. That means it's going to be a total of 7 counterattacks. Hitting on 4s. We're going to get a total of 2 hits. You'll have to do better than that, fellas. So 2 hits plus And neither of those are going to be wounding hits, meaning the Bromans are going to lose that fight. They're going to have to make a morale check at -2. But because this has not been dispelled yet, I think dispelling happens on your opponent's turn. So High Priest Rickley has still got his rosary held high, and thanks to that inspiration, basically nothing changes there. And that's going to be the end of the turn. After melee, what do we have? Melee, shooting, magic, shooting, close combat. We're done. Things get interesting because we move on to the Broman side. On their turn, the Bromans are going to pile in. Now that they've had their 15th casualty, they can send the reserves in. I actually have enough figures now that we can bring their last 15 spearmen onto the table. They, of course, are going to advance the full 8 inches. But our archers now, they're no slouches in melee combat either. We may want to just send them in after the knights. Of course, our spearmen are going to head for the ladders and try to scramble up the walls there. Our knights have to hold and wait to see what happens with this fight. These guys, well, again, these guys down here on the floor are going to flood the wall, and then we'll just bring this unit up to the ladders, and that's going to be it for movement. All right, for the magic phase, Rickley is maintaining his spell, which I'm not entirely sure how this works when you've got an ongoing spell. I believe we make the dispel attempt, and with a result of a 9, now Rickley has to decide how many are you going to do. As long as he doesn't get snake eyes, he's okay. That spell is going to remain in effect. The next order of business is shooting, and I've got a whole lot of archers down here. They're going to take a shot at the archers up there. They do not want those archers surviving to dump this cauldron down on this unit. That would be no bueno. Now, that is a total of 12 shots. They're only hitting on 6s because it's so far away. And they haven't really had a whole lot of effect. It takes 2 figures to operate the cauldron. So those 2 hits did manage to get over the battlements. We've struck those 2, and with a 5 and a 4, we do wound, but they have a 6-up save. And both of these archers are now eliminated, and that's probably going to do it for that cauldron. Well, maybe. We'll have to see how this combat goes, because we do have a couple. As you can see, I've moved the great swordsman up to here, and if they win this combat, they will be able to make I think we could be justified in making a consolidation move over into the tower, and at least getting just one guy over here. But they have to win that melee first. And ultimately, that's where we're at right now. I want to run the melee, since we're already set up right here. I want to run this melee down in the gatehouse first. Once again, we have a total of 7 attacks that are going to be hitting on 4s. And we get a total of 3 hits. That'll be wounding on 4s. We only get 1 wounding hit, and that is with a save of... Oh, the zombies don't get a save. So I'm going to pull one of the zombies off the back rank. And he's dead now. Then the 4 zombies get to counterattack. Hitting on 4s, they're going to get a pair of hits. Wounding on 4s, they're not going to wound at all. So the Bromans have won this round of combat, but because they won by 1, and the moon is right, no more zombies are going to crumble to dust. That moon is right is going to be devastating, and I think this fight at the gatehouse is going to take a long time. They're not going to be able to clear that nearly as easily as I expected. I wish I had a better idea of the rules of disengaging from combat, because I'm going to get the log out of there because it's just in the way. That's going to take a long time to kill 14 or 15 of those. I think those zombies are going to do a better job defending the gate than the actual gate itself did. We're going to have to overwhelm the wall over here. Fortunately for us, it's melee o'clock. I think this view gives you a better idea of how confusing this melee is for the ramparts, which is fitting. That's appropriate. We're going 3-on-1 against the last spearman over here. 2-on-1, great swords versus that skeleton. Over here, we've got 2-on-1. We've got 2-on-1 and 1-on-1, but right here in the middle, I want to draw your attention to this. This is General Sam out going up against the Iron Thrall, Karl Karinsky, with his AP1 Sword of Might. Bear in mind, because our general has a great weapon, he strikes last. So even though we had the pile in and he's outnumbered, Karl gets to attack first, and he's going to score a whopping 3 hits. However, he is going to be wounding on with a strength of... He's got 3 attacks with a strength of 6 versus a toughness of 4. We're way up into the... Still going to be wounding on 3, and our general only has 3 wounds. This could be a game breaker right here. 2 wounds, and with the heavy armor and shield, we are only going to be saving on 4-ups. So we get a 4 and a 4, so those 2 wounds become nothing. And now the general gets to return with 5 attacks, and he's going to be hitting on... Is it 3s? No, they're both weapon skill of 6 versus 5. I'm so used to 3s and 4s, the 6v5. Yep, 3s hit, so that's going to be 4 wounding hits on the Iron Thrall. And this is with AP2. It is a strength 4 hit. That's going to be 3 wounds on the Thrall with the AP of 2, plus 2 strength. He's got a Sword of Battle, which gives him the 1 extra attack, which I already factored in. And then, it's plus 2 to the strength. So now, Karl, with his Sword of Might, he's got heavy armor shield. He is going to be saving on 4-ups. So he's going to get 2 saves, and he's going to take his first wound, and that wound does count towards the wound count for the purposes of, boy, these ladders are just, boy, they were easy to put together. Just, popsicle sticks and I cut up some bamboo skewers for those. Karl, baby. You survived to fight another day. We are not going to clear these whole ramparts just yet. Now we got to go back to the spear guys. I got 5 spear attacks, and those are going up against 3. How am I going to... I got to remember that 1 wound. We're going to get 3 hits. We're going to be wounding on 4s. We're going to get a pair of hits. We're going to be... The skeletons saving on 6s. They get nothing. So that's a total of 3 wounds against the undead. On this side of the battlefield, we've got 5 great swordsmen hitting on 3s. We're going to get a total of 5 hits, and they are deadly. They're going to be wounding on, I think it's 3s. It might be 2s, though, so let me just check. They're at plus 2 strength with the great weapons, meaning it's a strength 5 hit going up against toughness. Yeah, it's 2s. So they're going to do 4 wounding hits, and with the AP2, that's going to take out 2 more. Oh, there go the birds. We have our buzzard ambiance provided by a host of... Now, here's the question. We had him over here, right? We did 3 hits. Do we take this guy off, even though he's way over here? Technically, we're fighting a unit, so that kind of leaves nobody but Karl over here. So we've clearly won the combat, but he's not an undead, right? Does our Iron Thrall take the extra hits? And if so, what does that mean for our guys taking the wall? This is really confusing. The good news is the skeleton unit down here is too far away to retake the wall. So I think on the next turn, but these guys can pile in, right? But is that a 1v1 fight? I'm really kind of confused. I tell you what we're going to do. Got it. The Iron Thrall dies because the extra loss of units, he's only got 1 wound left. That applies both to characters and units. He is a character who is adjoined to the unit that was up there. By winning by, 4, meaning 3, that's enough to take him out. So what we're going to do next is we're going to bring General Sam out over here. We're still in contact with... Now we're in contact with this skeleton unit over here. All right, I'm going to lay you down. You're just annoying me. And our boys are piled in like so. And our... great weapon unit is now turned to face in this direction. And I'm doing this for a very specific reason. It opens the path for this unit to get over the wall into the courtyard. I think, again, we can only move, I think we're only supposed to move 2 guys up a ladder per turn. So I might have been rolling too many attacks here. Check out the comments. There's lots of guys that have more experience with this game than me. But I honestly think that it's reasonable here that on the next turn, and by the way, we're done with this turn. We've done all the melee. When we turn our attention to the undead, which we're doing right now, as a matter of fact, for their movement, we moved the courtyard unit of spears over here to try and plug the gap. Our general is now facing a 3-on-1 fight against the unit on the left, and this spear unit in the center is going to be stuck in a 1v1. Well, actually, there's spearmen, right? So it'll be 4 spears versus 2 heavy weapon guys, and then, of course, the zombies down here in the courtyard. We got to start with missile. There's none. We can start with magic, though. And we'll do the same thing where we say, hey, let's try and blast the magic user. We get a total result of an 11. That ain't bad. The magic user says, you know what? I don't care if you summon a few more skeletons. We got this in the bag. I'm going to roll big dice, 11 versus whatever, 16. That's it. So only on a 5 or 6 do we get any more skeletons into the courtyard, and we fail on that. That means magic is over. We can do this melee right here. We're down here in the gate where the 7 spear hit on 4s, and they do 3 hits. They're going to be wounding on 4s. They're going to do no wounds, which means they will suffer the indignity of facing 4 attacks back on them. They're going to get just the zombies are going to get 1 hit. That is not going to wound, so nothing doing. The gate is still jammed up. We have a total of, well, they charged, so the skeletons get to attack the great swords first. They're going to do 2 hits. Those hits are not going to wound. The 2 great swordsmen in the front row get to counterattack, and they're going to roll a single hit, wounding on 4. Actually, no, it's wounding on 2s because they're great swordsmen, and that is going to be an automatic kill, so we lost 1 guy. That's going to end the combat as is. The moon is right. We reduce the number of excess casualties by 1, and we can turn our attention to the final combat, which has General Sam out charged by, let's call it 6 spearmen. If they can kill the general, something interesting might happen. They're only going to get 2 hits hitting on 5s. That's not going to be enough to kill him. Strength of 3 versus only the 4 is a hit, and he's saving on a 4 or better with a 6. He saves. He then gets to counterattack with a total of 5 attacks. He's hitting on 3s. He gets a total of 4 hits. He is wounding on... he's got the big weapon, so that's going to be 3 wounds. With the extra AP, that's going to eliminate 3 of these skeletons. Not only that, but because he won so big, they're going to lose 2 more skeletons. And with that being the end of the melee, the Bromans are going to be able to move into the courtyard, like so. They'll follow up with this unit down here for movement. That's as far as they'll go. I think this is, bear with me, I think this is reasonable. Our archers are going to target the Vampire Lord himself. They've got a total of 12 shots. We're looking for 6s. They came up big now. They get a total of 4 hits with a strength of 3. The Blank John has a toughness of 5, so they're only going to be wounding on 6s. Wow, he's a pretty tough guy, huh? And how many wounds does he have? So they can actually kill him if they are able to, let's see, he's got 4 wounds. So again, they'd have to Yahtzee to kill him. They're not going to get any wounds on him, but that's kind of the idea. Then we have our, does he dispel? And it's 5 versus 3. And if this doesn't work, then I think it's pretty much over. Without the double 6s on the dispel, and with the double 6s on the recast, we're still live and in charge, large and in charge. We're not intimidated by the undead at all. We now have a full unit of 15 spear in the courtyard. We're bottled up here, but we also control most of the ramparts. In other words, I'm going to call it here. I think the Bromans have met their victory conditions. On the next turn, they're going to have a total of 30 spearmen in the courtyard up against 10 spearmen, plus they're going to be squeezing the zombies between a rock and a hard place. General Sam out's going to wipe out that unit, and his backed up by spears. We could actually argue that with General Sam out in front, we got a couple of extra attacks. The writing's on the wall. This game is over. I'm not going to spend the next 40 minutes playing this out. This is one of the downsides of campaign games. Quite often, you'll find yourself in a situation where you feel like you have to play it out because your victory conditions are not as cut and dried as if you were playing a scenario designed by a scenario designer, like the one in the Warhammer Fantasy Battle 6th edition book, which says once you've lost 25%, or once you get, inside the walls, which is essentially what I'm using. And again, just to add further credence to my decision to just call this a Broman victory, and whether it's a major victory, minor victory, whatever, we know what the ending of this campaign is. The story is that the vampire lord, even if he escapes, to live another day. The power of Castle Gallagher has been broken. The sun is shining on his domain, and we're going to be able to resettle or colonize, if you will, the undead lands with a bunch of holy peasants. And in fact, some of these guys, these heroes on the wall, are going to be given large tracts of land in gratitude for their service, and particularly the families of the guys that fell at the base of the wall. We're going to take good care of those because it is only right and just to take care of your veterans. Wouldn't it be nice to live in a country like that? Took a little better care of veterans? Boy, sure I'm kind of jealous of the Bromans. You get the point. We're war games. We're not here politics, but, as we say, we appreciate your sacrifice. The citizens do, even if it sometimes seems like the government has other priorities. So, with all that said, we are now at, episode 15. Fairly long map-based campaign with Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I think it's robust for a campaign, not ideal. I don't think it scales as well as Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, but it is a heck of a lot of fun. And if all you ever do is sit down at a table and play quick one-offs, highly recommend. Throw some dots on a map, link them with roads, put 3 armies together, send them at each other, back each other up, see what happens. Really good, solid victory for the Bromans. I might have been pulling for them. I might have favored them a little bit. Seems like a lot of my mistakes went their way instead of the way of the undead. But hey, if the NFL can do it, and we all saw the end of that Lions-Dallas game, you know what I'm talking about, then I don't feel too bad about doing it here, where the stakes are so much lower. Hey, until next time! Thanks for coming along for the ride. I'm praying for you.